Well, today we are going to talk about some family relationships, problems that happen in families. I recall many years ago when I was a young child, my family, who was living at the time in Wisconsin, drove in our station wagon across the country to California where my grandparents lived, my father's parents. As kids, we sort of enjoyed it. We tried to talk my parents into stopping at the motels that had swimming pools and things like that. There were 4 of us children. I was probably 8 or 9. We finally arrived in California. We got to my grandparents' apartment. They lived on a second floor. They rented a small apartment, 2 rooms. We came in, we said the hellos to my grandparents, and while we were saying the hellos, my grandmother dialed one of the cousins and held out the phone to my father and said, "Here, talk to your cousin." My father had just driven 2,000 miles, not even had a chance to go to the bathroom, recover, and he said no, and we all stormed out. He stormed out, and we stayed in a motel for another 3 or 4 nights, and then finally there was some sort of reconciliation that happened, and we came back over to his parents' home. And I remember that as tension, but that is how family dynamics work. His mother was used to seeing her children as an extension of herself, that my will is automatically your will. And family relationships work like that in many cases, oftentimes to the detriment of everyone involved. I want to begin by looking at some family relationships of Jesus, and then we can discover how they affected him and perhaps how he dealt with them and understand a little more. I love to look into this personality, the character of Jesus, to show us and to help us discover how it is that we are supposed to live. The text is from John chapter 7, starting in verse 1. After this, Jesus went about in Galilee. He would not go about in Judea because the Jews were seeking to kill him. Now the Jews' feast of booths was at hand. So his brothers said to him, "Leave here and go to Judea, that your disciples also may see the works that you are doing. For no one works in secret if he seeks to be known openly. If you do these things, show yourself to the world." For not even his brothers believed in him. Jesus said to them, "My time has not yet come, but your time is always here. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify about it that its works are evil. You go up to the feast. I am not going up to the feast, for my time has not yet fully come." After saying this, he remained in Galilee. But after his brothers had gone up to the feast, then he also went up, not publicly, but in private. That passage has always bothered me a little bit because he said he wasn't going up and then he went. But there are some other things in here I want to unpack a bit about the family dynamics. His brothers, this type of speech that they're using, we've heard this type of speech before. Leave here and go to Judea, that your disciples also may see the works you are doing. For no one works in secret if he wants to be known openly. In other words, I know what you're up to. I know that you're trying to do some sort of political movement and that you want to be known openly. So I'm telling you how to do it. If you do these things, what things? Oh, the miracles that they've been hearing about. Haven't we heard that kind of language before? Luke chapter 4, verse 3, and the devil said to him, if you are the Son of God, command this stone to become bread. That kind of challenge to, if you really are who you say you are, who you're trying to be. It's sort of a form of contempt when we speak to people and they're trying to manipulate him. They're actually applying some pressure here. They want him to go. We can talk a lot about why they want him to go and have a lot of theories about it, but it's interesting that it says in verse 1, because the Jews were seeking to kill him. He had irritated them so much. Repeatedly, they kept picking up these stones to stone him, and he seems to escape at every time they do that. These were not plastic pretend stones. These were real stones they were picking up. And as we find from the book of Acts, they really do stone Stephen when they get angry. This vigilante justice seems to be okay as far as the Roman rule is concerned. You can take care of your own. They didn't seem to arrest anyone after Stephen's death. The same kind of thing was happening with the Apostle Paul. They were waiting for him to ambush him. This kind of justice was popular back then, and Jesus was hesitant to go to Judea. It says they were seeking to kill him. You know, after he speaks, John chapter 7, it says, has not Moses, Jesus is speaking now to the people. He actually ends up going, and we're going to discuss why he ends up going, at least my theory on why he does go, and perhaps why he said he wasn't going. But Jesus says, has not Moses given you the law, yet not one of you keeps it? Why do you seek to kill me? There it is again. Verse 1, they're seeking to kill him. Kill him. Now here Jesus says, why are you seeking to kill me? Listen to this response. The crowd answered, you have a demon. Who is seeking to kill you? You have a demon. Interesting comeback. You know, they said something similarly, or they will, in John chapter 8, the next chapter, the Jews answered him, are we not right in saying that you are a Samaritan and you have a demon? I want you to understand shame, contempt, manipulation, trying to get people to either be quiet or do what you want them to do through shame. I want you to understand this shame. First of all, imagine someone saying to you, you have a demon. It would be offensive to me. To the Son of God, I would imagine that would be particularly offensive. And at one point he does say, if you're attributing these works to Satan, that's blasphemy of the Holy Spirit. That's going to get you into some trouble. You're not going to want to do that. But this calling him, saying he has a demon, is offensive. But they also called him a Samaritan, which is interesting. I don't know if you get the subtlety of the offense of what's being said here, because a Samaritan is someone where you have one parent is Jewish and one parent is not. They're saying, we know who your mother is, but we also know and we are assuming that you were born out of wedlock. We don't know who your father is. Aren't we right in saying you're a Samaritan? That your father could be anybody. Wow. He's there doing good, speaking the truth, and he's getting this kind of contempt and insult. And this is his answer. I do not have a demon, but I honor my Father, but you dishonor me. Oh, he picked up the dishonor there. I'm honoring my Father, but you're dishonoring me. So he called them on it. And it is through this dishonor, it is through this type of manipulation that many of us have people that try to control us. And I will wager that some of us actually use some manipulation and some forms of control with people in our families and with the people around us. So Jesus doesn't want to go. The authorities are trying to kill him. And then actually, in John 7:25, after they say, who's trying to kill you? 4 verses later, some of the people of Jerusalem therefore said, is not this the man whom they seek to kill? So it's kind of crazy making. They're saying, who's trying to kill you? You're just imagining the whole thing. And yet the people are saying, this is the guy they're trying to kill. They're making him think he's going insane. He didn't want to go. He understands that he is supposed to die on Passover. It is not Passover. It is Sukkot. It is one of the pilgrimage festivals where every Jewish male is supposed to go to Jerusalem. Every Jewish male is commanded in the scriptures to be in Jerusalem on 3 holidays: Passover, Pentecost, and Sukkot. Pentecost being first fruits or the Feast of Weeks. So this is the Feast of Booths. He's not feeling like going because the people there don't want him. The administration doesn't want him. He is stealing their attention. He's potentially also taking away some of their money, some of the tithes that usually go to the temple. As these huge amounts of people are following him, it's very, very possible that he is affecting their income, especially since he is going about forgiving sins. And forgiveness of sins, something that until that time had to go through the priesthood. We don't really understand that in our culture, but at that time, if you wanted to deal with God, you had to do it through the priest. So they had a closed market, and they were doing well at that. When Jesus was there on a previous occasion, he also turned over all these money tables. That irritated some people significantly. He doesn't want to go where he's not wanted, and he doesn't want to die before Passover. So the pressure and the contempt and the belittling of his brothers also doesn't really pressure him to go. In fact, I'm wondering in this case if some of the pressure from his family actually makes him not want to go. His feelings are, I don't want to go to Jerusalem. This is not he says it's not my time, which means it's not time for me to die. I sense that they are going to kill me if I go there. That's my feeling. When his brothers go, I'm not sure exactly what happens. You can use your imagination. Either he hears something from the Father, or he remembers that it is in the law that every Jewish male must go on these three holidays, and that overrules his hesitancy to go. And so he decides, my life is in the Father's hands, I'm going to go. But because they're looking for him, probably seeking to arrest him as soon as he comes into town, the fact that he goes a few days later It says he wasn't planning to go, but something convinced him, I need to go. And it's interesting that when he goes, he's able to say to them, has not Moses given you the law? Yet none of you keeps the law. Had he not gone, he could not have said in John chapter 8, which one of you convicts me of sin? Because he would have broken the law. So between his father and his feelings and whatever, he was able to say, no, this is where I need to be. He didn't have to go on the first day. It just says everyone has to show up for these festivals. And because he is there now, he can say, which one of you can convict me of sin? Which one of you accuses me of sin? So the temple police are sent to arrest him. And they're so amazed by his speech, they come back to the Pharisees and say, nobody speaks like this man. So we see the control and the manipulation of this society trying to silence Jesus, trying to keep him down. And we see him honestly, with feelings, with intuitions, no, it's not good to go. And then later saying, no, I think actually I do need to go. Changes his mind, he goes, and he's protected. They are trying to arrest him, they are trying to kill him, but he's able to speak, and he comes under the Father's protection, and he is not arrested at that time. As we go back in Scripture, looking at this theme of control, are we supposed to be controlling other people? Are we supposed to be controlling our life events? And how might that work for us or against us? And I want to take us to the story of Abraham. In Genesis chapter 12, God calls Abraham, tells him to leave his family, go to the place I will show you. He goes obediently. There's a famine in the land, and he needs to go to Egypt. And now he's going to try to control his circumstances. He's going to try to control his environment because he senses that there's some danger. And so he's going to take matters into his own hands. And he asks his wife, Sarah, to say that she is his sister. So he's going to ask his wife to lie to protect him. Interesting plan. And I want to suggest to you that when he does that, and whenever we try to use our human ingenuity to try to control a situation which is outside of the will of God, we're really not checking with God on this, we're just doing our own thing, we are going to sow some seeds that are probably not going to bear good fruit later on. What was that communicating? What was the meta message to Sarah? If she had had a child, would she have been asked to say, "You're my sister"? Probably not. So it's a form of devaluation. I mean, there are a lot of things that we can discuss about this, but you don't want to miss that. We look at, Abraham told a bit of a fib. He actually gets kicked out of Egypt for this. So this is such a disgrace that Pharaoh would think, why would you think that would go on here, that I would have done something like that? Take you and your wife, and he said he sent his men to get them out of town. So he's not even able to stay in this refuge where he was hoping to lie his way into. So God sends him a very clear shame message. And I want to say something about shame, because I've spoken about shame before, and we talk about shame as if it is always bad. Actually, it's not always bad. We need shame. Shame is part of our socialization process. It is how we are socialized. The reason I don't stand up here with my finger in my nose is because at some point along the way, someone said that is shameful, don't do that. Or someone gave me a disgust look or something. I mean, this is how we're trained. There are certain ways that we talk and dress and respond. And the reason we don't largely do things that irritate people are because at some point we've gotten and received a shame message. So the caveat is this. So shame is good. Sometimes it's not good other times. Shame actually is good, speaking about parenting, for about 45 seconds to a minute. It's healthy. We need that. But because it's so powerful, most parents used shame like a sledgehammer. Go away. Go to your room. When I'm ready, you can come out. Or something, I mean, sometimes that is healthy. It's just, when shame is used too aggressively, goes on for more than a minute, you let the child sit in shame, they begin believing that something about them, actually their character, is shameful. See, shame and guilt are different. Guilt says, I've done something wrong. Shame says, I am something wrong. I own it. It is me. It is my character. I can't get rid of it. That's why the statements that we make, not, you told a lie, son, but you're a liar, is a shaming thing, a character assassination. Saying, whatever forgiveness, however you will try to get around this, I can see this as your character. You're a liar. You're an adulterer. You're a cheat. We love to use that kind of shame because it's actually very powerful, manipulative, and motivating. So I point out here that Abraham was using it, but God sends him a shame message, and oftentimes God will do things like that, saying, that wasn't part of my plan. You didn't check with me. Did that shame message take with Abraham? Was it effective? Did he do it again, let's just say? Yes. He lies again about his wife. Now, I just want to send out a little subtlety here. When you send a woman into a harem, in that culture or any culture, have you ever heard of a woman coming out of a harem alive in the history? Any stories anyone ever heard? Oh yeah, she just talked to her husband, said, yeah, go ahead, you're free. Have your freedom again. It's never happened. So he's actually sending her in there permanently to save him. Very interesting about what's really at stake here, what's really happening, the true cost of this. But then we go to the story of Sarah and Hagar. And when it's done to you, you pass it on. You do things to others. So let's think about Hagar. She is an Egyptian. Interesting fact that probably it says that Abraham got sheep and cattle and male and female servants from Egypt in exchange for Sarah, so Hagar likely came into his house in exchange for his wife. Where are her parents? She's a slave girl. Who's helping her? Someone brings someone like that into your life, and I think he wanted Sarah to help Hagar. Let me ask you a question. Did Hagar want a husband? Probably yes. Probably most every woman wants a husband. Did she want Sarah's husband, or would she rather have had her own husband? Probably wanted her own. I don't know that there, it says Abraham had 300 and something fighting men there on his grounds. There were plenty of available men, I believe, in Abraham's city-state, this area that he controlled. There were plenty of options. But I believe that Sarah sort of kept Hagar as her ace in the pocket in case she felt like God wasn't doing enough for her. She could use her to get what she wanted, a child. She could control her. She could use her instead of mothering her, blessing her, allowing her to have her own man, her own family. She kept her in case she needed her. And then she said, essentially, you are an extension of me. Have my child. I will give you to my husband. And we know the story. It did not work out well. Hagar, understandably, she's got no parents. She's got no proper rearing. Starts to take this like, well, I'm pregnant, you're not. He's my husband now. And Sarah can't believe this is happening. But look at the psychology behind the scenes. What else has Hagar got? What does she have? She's got nothing else. So we've got all of this tension. And one of the things that we see here, and that I want to describe and talk with you about, is the subject of narcissism. Now, narcissistic people can be extremely difficult to deal with. And Jesus, of course, was really dealing with a lot of narcissists. The Pharisees typically could not receive a shame message. Whitewashed tombs, brood of vipers. He was giving them shame messages. And they kept coming back at him, trying to character assassinate him, which is essentially how a narcissist works. They are going to try to destroy you. And if they can't destroy you, they'll try to destroy your reputation. If they can't destroy your reputation, they're going to try to go after your family and friends. They're going to do whatever they can to shame you. They can't receive a shame message, and so they have to destroy you. There's a lot of this in our society. And I just want to, if we can recognize it, I think there are some things that we can do that will be helpful. Usually in a narcissist's life, between ages 18 to 24, they have a choice to make. They recognize there's this style of relating to people, this strategy of blaming everyone else for your problems or for anyone who sends you a shame message or tries to correct you. Blaming them has a certain degree of success. You don't have to feel the shame. Most people will just back off and leave you alone. And between ages 18 and 24, they have a choice to make. Is this going to be my preferred? Is this going to be my preferred strategy for life? And if they choose yes, it sort of fixes this personality, which is very, very difficult to change unless a narcissistic person wants to change, which is pretty rare because this strategy works so well and they're so well defended from feeling any shame. As I mentioned, shame feels like death. So they self-justify. They easily justify their actions. They're very smooth talking. One of the characteristics of some of these narcissistic people is that they're extremely charismatic and smooth. And you just can't believe the way they can talk themselves in or out of something, and pretty soon you're actually believing that everything is okay. But somehow when you go home, you have this strange feeling like, no, it's not. I think I've just been swindled. We see them often as politicians. They often rise to places of prominence and power because it is there that you can hide your shame. They arise in church leadership. They arise in political leadership. Because you then have the ability to control or to shame others. I get to tell you what to do, and you can't touch me. So the Bible calls these people stiff-necked, hard-hearted. That is a Hebrew illustration. Stiff-necked is a person who never hangs his head in shame. He's stiff-necked. He never has any shame. You have all the shame. It's your problem. You did this. It's because of you. We didn't have this problem here until you got here. You will hear any number of justifications, but many narcissistic people are very, very intelligent. And so they can spin it so that it's always your fault. I won't love you unless you treat me well. If not, I'll treat you with contempt, and I will humiliate you, which makes us really want to treat them well. Makes us people pleasers. They are perfect setups for what we call codependency. A person who will just make sure everything is okay, even though this person has a lot of problems and needs to face them. The codependent person will just try to make them happy. Humiliation, often an attempt to injure. Shame, sarcasm. Even this word sarcasm, sarc means flesh, chasm, tearing, flesh tearing. By the way, sarcasm, when we look at the factors that destroy relationships, particularly marriages, fastest, it is the use of sarcasm. Oh, that was just great. Oh, nice move. That was really slick. Oh, we needed that. Oh, nice job on the roast tonight. All of those tones, shame messages coming through sort of humorous jokes. That is flesh tearing, sarcasm. And that will destroy your relationships. And I want you to I want to pause for a moment for you to look at the relationships around you and maybe even some of your speech. Because in many of our families, this is the way we talk to each other on holidays. This is normal. We tease, it's flesh tearing. We don't really encourage. We can't be honest. We can't be vulnerable. We're always taking little dibs or jabs. It's the only attention that we get. And if that is your family or your social circle, I just want you to take a moment now to think, do I have the courage to stop that? Do I have the courage actually to compliment someone? Or to bless them, to say, wow, if there's something about them, Father, show me something I can give them an honest compliment. I'm tired of all this jabbing and sarcasm in my social circle. I'm just going to give you a moment of silence now. A good interlude for talking about narcissism and dealing with the narcissists in our lives. We need some peace, some help. It is painful. It is very painful to deal with people who are narcissistic. They're on a spectrum like so many things. But someone who is extremely narcissistic, they actually are going to be tracking your failures. And they're going to know all of your failures and all of your history. So as soon as you try to tell them something, guess what they're going to tell you? They're going to remind you. They get hysterical and then they get historical. They're going to pull up all of the things, all of the reasons why you are the bad one. You don't know what you're talking about. Total lack of introspection. Total lack of actually interest. Oh, a narcissistic person will act interested in you, but they want something from you. They want something from you. Maybe they want your loyalty. They're very smooth. But once they've got it, Or once they realize you're actually not going to give them what they want, you can expect a lot of resistance. You can expect them actually trying to destroy you, to make you wish you had complied with them. They take advantage of power, position, opportunity, family relationships. They will even use arguments, family arguments. You are going to tear this family apart by telling the truth about something that happened in the past or something that's going on right now. You are going to destroy this family. You're going to destroy this organization. They love to shame. So they shame others while refusing to share any shame for themselves. They actually create their own history, their own reality of what life looks like. Now, narcissists, once you understand what's going on, they're actually unable to experience true intimacy. Because true intimacy requires you to be known, to be open, to be vulnerable, to listen, to know and to be known. A narcissist never experiences that, but what the best they can get is just trying to stop any criticism and to build their empire. So addiction is very common with narcissistic people. Now there's someone who's written on this a bit, and they talk about a problem in our culture, in our country. It's called conversational narcissism. And it goes something like this. You're walking with your friend, and you say, "Boy, I'm really hungry." And your friend says, "Oh, I already ate." Another conversation, you would say, "I'm really hungry," and your friend would say, "When is the last time you ate?" One of them is a social support, and one of them is everything is referencing to me. This is our culture. I've even found myself doing that. Everything somehow in a conversation, you can start saying, oh yeah, me too. Instead of lending social support, we are so starving for affirmation or some sort of attention that we will essentially steal the conversation always to us. It's called conversational narcissism, and many of us have it. I want you to think about your speech and start monitoring it a bit as you go from here to say, how can I start supporting the people when someone makes a comment? Maybe I should ask a question about them. When is the last time you ate? But we are not the only people that have had a problem with conversational narcissism. I refer you to Luke chapter 22 and verse 21. Very serious meal. This is the Last Supper. Jesus is going to die later on, essentially that day. You know, in the Jewish day, the Passover, or the evening starts in the evening, as you do as well. So he's eating the Passover that evening. He's actually going to die on the Passover, which is going to be later that same day. So the day starts in the evening. But behold, the hand of him who betrays me is with me on the table. For the Son of Man goes as it has been determined, but woe to that man by whom he is betrayed. And they began to question one another which of them it could be who was going to betray them, or who it was that was going to do this. Next verse. A dispute also arose among them as to which of them was to be regarded as the greatest. Did you pick up that switch? Someone's going to betray you? Oh, that is so terrible. Yeah, which of us is the greatest? Well, have you seen my new Lexus? It is. I think maybe I've been the best speaker this week. Oh, that's too bad you're going to be betrayed, though. But let's talk about us. Conversational narcissism. You mean somebody in our group is going to betray you? Oh, so terrible. Yeah, which one of us really has the stuff? Ouch, ouch. Someone is going to betray me. Someone who's been walking with me for 3 years is going to sell me down the river for money. And I can't find anyone to empathize with me, to feel what that might feel like for me. And I'm going to be dying the next day. Wow. Wow. Well, so Jesus knows about narcissists. A couple of caveats. When someone is self-justifying around you, the temptation is going to be for you to self-justify. And so we must be very careful, because they are going to draw you into their web, and they're going to get you to start acting in a narcissistic fashion, defending yourself, self-justifying. Jesus doesn't get drawn into that, and you should not either. The problem is it hurts. It hurts to have someone shaming you, and you don't get to justify yourself. Or, in fact, you did make a mistake back there that they're bringing up. When treated with contempt, you will be tempted to respond with contempt. And when humiliated, you'll be tempted to start being quiet and run away, or humiliate in return. Vengeance. So many of our movies and things are about getting back, getting that vengeance. And with a narcissistic person, it is so tempting to want to do that. But when you do, of course, then they have you in their web. Now you've just helped them. See, a narcissistic person wants to fix himself or herself. That can be men or women. I believe my grandmother was quite narcissistic with that telephone that day. You do what I want you to do. You are an extension of me. But that's how she was raised. And that's, I should mention, in my family, that goes back, as far as I can tell, to the patriarchs. My father from the tribe of Levi. I know he had a problem with his parents. His father had a problem with his father, as far back as I know. And then I can go all the way back to see Jacob's son, Levi. Was Levi the favorite son of Jacob? No. Jacob had a favorite son. It was Joseph. Not chosen, angry. So all the way back, as far as I know, the next generation has never had much grace for the previous generation, and vice versa. So a narcissistic person wants to fix themselves. They don't want any help from the community. The problem is they really can't fix themselves. They need help from the community. They need grace in community, and they need to be able to make mistakes and to be called on them and to be vulnerable. It also requires you to have a safe community, and many of us have a safe community which you can be honest, you can share your faults, and some of us do not. But I encourage you, if it's possible, find a safe place, a safe group of friends, or even one where you can be honest and vulnerable, and practice being vulnerable, confessing, having people help to pray for you for your faults and weaknesses. There's an authenticity and a freedom there that we have in Christ that many of us don't experience. Narcissists will also come upon many hardships in life. The problem is that many of us bail them out. Because seeing a narcissist having a problem with their life, they're not getting what they want, they will throw a fit and they will start to blame you. So it's many of us will start paying their bills and doing things like that, bailing them out of their crisis. And when they do they learn their lesson? No, they don't. They don't. It just continues. So allowing tests will come, allowing the natural tests of life to test a narcissist is important, although they want you to bail them out. You can express disapproval to narcissistic people. Jesus did. He expressed his disapproval. He made sure that he knew that what they were doing was not okay. Now here's the bad news, is that they killed him. They wanted everyone to line up and give them approval. They did not want one person taking their glory, and so he actually died for jealousy. He died because of envy, because these were a very powerful narcissistic group of people. Don't give in to fear. Don't accept their condemnation. Don't fear their judgment. Let God make your character impervious to the judgments of others. We've talked about shame. We've talked about condemnation. There is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. If you've made a mistake, you can confess it. You can be forgiven for it. And even if people want to keep bringing it up, actually God has forgiven you. They can do that, but you don't have to keep receiving their shame and their judgment. And then we need to fill ourselves with God's thoughts. We need to continue in fellowship with Him. Dealing with narcissistic people is very, very trying. But I want to just point out and have us think for a moment, do we exhibit any kind of controls on the people around us? Do we allow them to make free choices, express our desire perhaps, but then allow them to be free whichever choice they would want to make? I would like you to help me with this. I'd like you to help me with this project, but if you don't want to, it's okay. Is that the kind of speech that we have, or do we have, I helped you with yours last time. I really need this. And so-and-so is asking for it, quickly. Do we put our own pressure or manipulation on people to get what we want? And I'm looking back at Abraham and Sarah. Are we doing some of those same manipulative things to make sure our plan works out? And I've had to say in the last years or so, I've begun to realize, I'm concerned that my plan is not going to work out. But I always say, and I believe God's plan is going to work out, but His plan is usually slower than mine. I want mine to work out right away and quickly and easily. And I believe this is the quickest distance between 2 points. I just want to give you a few minutes to think, are there times or places or ways where you are exhibiting control? It happens in families most commonly. The people closest to you are the ones that you will try to control, to treat as if they are an extension of yourself, or to make them feel guilty or shamed or something like that. It may be happening to you, but you may be doing it to others, because this is very, very common in our families. And I've seen it powerfully in my life going both ways. So I want to give you a moment just to think about that, to pray about that, and ask God, is there something that needs to change in the area of control and manipulation in your life? Okay. A couple of final things that you can do if you have a narcissistic person in your circle. First of all, you can defend the victims of a narcissistic person, because often they have a lot of victims. They have a lot of bodies lying around that they have tried to destroy. They have shamed. You can befriend and help them realize it's not them. With narcissistic people, what Jesus did, He made His intentions clear, and He set clear boundaries. There were things He did and He didn't do. And so, making your intentions clear, this is what I'm going to do, is very important in dealing with narcissistic people. And then don't make empty threats. You need to follow through. If you said that you're going to quit if this happens again, then you need to make sure that you follow through. Or don't make that threat. you need to find another one. What is the consequence of this behavior continuing? You are in control of you. You have self-control. You're not in control of them. And most of us have been taught, if I can say the right thing or do the right thing, I can actually control them. But we don't want to control them. We want them to control them. What are you going to do? And what are you going to trust God to do for you as you step out in faith? Because leaving a job, leaving a situation may take a lot of faith. Can God help you with that? Does he need you to do this manipulation, or is he going to allow you to set some boundaries, trust him for the path he's setting? But I'm just going to say a prayer over you. Father, thank you for everyone who has come today and all this week. I ask us a blessing on them, a blessing on their relationships. Father, that we would not control and manipulate people in our lives, but we would learn to love them and to let them hear from you, and that we would trust you with these difficult people and trust you and be introspective with ourselves, that we would receive any shame messages from you, and that we would correct our behavior and also receive your comfort and your forgiveness as soon as we recognize it. Bless them with their health, relationships, especially our relationships with you, Father. We want to encourage them in that. In Jesus' name, amen.